Hey everybody, welcome back to the Convo Couch. I am Fiorella. And you guys know what's been happening with the DNC. I'm sure you've heard. And 4 days ago, Brent Welder, who is a DNC representative for Bernie Sanders, proposed an anti-corruption amendment to ban corporate PAC money to the DNC and ban the corporate lobbyists from being able to serve on the DNC as well. The Biden campaign then repeatedly recruited a corporate lobbyist on the Rules Committee to speak against it. And then ultimately, all the Biden nominees to the committee voted to table the anti-corruption amendment in an effort to kill it without having to go on record. And in opposition, the Sanders supporters, committee nominees, revolted in a behind-the-scenes scenario, and they won a motion. They actually won the motion to get it recorded on an up and down vote. And then, although some of the Biden nominees abstained, 105 of them were put on record to show that they voted against an anti-corruption amendment, which you think, according to the Democratic party platform, they shouldn't be advocating to cover up any sort of corruption. And today we have Brent in the studio via Zoom to talk more about this, because this is, I think people need to know more about the DNC and the process, and a lot of people sometimes tune that out. And in order to defeat the establishment, we need to understand the rules and how they work. So Brent is a lawyer for workers, a burner, as well as a former candidate for Congress in Kansas in 2018. And Brent, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Fiorella. It's great to be here.
Okay, so first of all, Brent, I just want to say good job, because even though I don't believe that it's possible to work in such a corrupt party, I do see the value in what those of you are doing, and I respect your ability to stomach it, because it really does take a lot to stomach what you are seeing. So I want to hear from you. How did you feel when you saw this corruption happening before your eyes? And did you not expect it from Democrats like the Joe Biden campaign and like those like him who, they're friends with Wall Street, they're friends with bankers, they're friends with lobbyists?
Well, I've been seeing the corruption of both major political parties for a long, long time, like basically ever since I began paying attention. And over the years, as a progressive who tries to keep myself informed, I just have been learning more and more and more and more about how it works. I actually also have worked in Congress before and in campaigns, and just have seen it firsthand. And, a lot of it was kind of funny hearing you say, you said, well, he's a DNC representative. And then you said, of Bernie Sanders, which is great, because yes, it probably sounds like, maybe I am this big insider or something with the DNC, because I've been on a couple of these committees over the years. But if it weren't for Bernie Sanders, I think thinking that, believing that I'm someone who will go in there and boldly speak truth to power and kind of go against the establishment grain, I don't think there's any way I ever would have been involved or invited or welcome at any of these things before. And, to your question, as far as can the DNC be reformed, is this the right way to do it? Are we spinning our wheels? That kind of thing. I think it's important to remember that, I had a couple of strategies bringing this anti-corruption amendment to the DNC. One was, of course, in the extremely unlikely scenario that common sense prevailed and clean government prevailed, and they actually adopted my measure. I thought it would have been a tremendous service to not only the party, but the country. However, I also knew that there was a very, very high likelihood that it absolutely would not do anything of the sorts, and that it would fail. And I thought the benefit of that is that these meetings are covered in front of the National Press Corps. A lot of progressive journalists like yourself cover it closely, and actually a lot better and more thoroughly than the National Press Corps. And I thought it would be a really great opportunity to expose to the people exactly how corrupt it is. It's so corrupt that all we're asking is that they literally won't let the lobbyists sit on the DNC, like be an actual member of the DNC. Okay, it doesn't even say they can't lobby them, they can't succumb to their lobbying, it doesn't say they can't come come to our representatives on the Hill and pay them off with their bribes. It just says they can't literally be on the DNC and accept their money. And, now we have a list of DNC members and Democratic Party insiders who don't believe that.
Yeah, so I mean, I do commend that, because we wouldn't have a list if you guys hadn't fought for it. I got very cynical in terms of the Sanders campaign and what could be achieved because of even the way the delegates were chosen. I mean, everybody had an issue with that. All these things that came together just were made to silence Bernie delegates or any opposition against Joe Biden. And so when we don't have that opposition, then it just feels like we are muzzled and we can't speak out. So the DNC Rules Committee, on top of all of this, called you children and proceeded to insult all of you. And of course, Nina Turner said this was unacceptable. A lot of you have voiced your dissent and your anger. But is there a way to work with this organization, like seeing that they abuse you and they obviously don't want anything to do with any progressive ideas? How do you plan on combating that?
Well, when you say this organization, I think that's ultimately the question, right? What is the Democratic Party? Is the Democratic Party the group of 500 to 1,000, insiders, backroomers that sit in DC or wherever they or in their corporate halls and try to lead this party directly into the ground, wittingly or not? Or is the Democratic Party the 100 million people across the country who believe, for the most part, with reasonable differences, the things that are in the Democratic Party platform, or at the very least, the things that should be in the Democratic Party platform because they're supported by a vast majority of registered Democrats, not to mention a majority of the American people. So if your question is, can the current group of insiders be reformed? I think absolutely not. I never thought they could. I didn't think they were going to vote for my amendment. I am glad that we now at least have a list exposing, some of the people with names attached to it. But if the question is, can the 100 million progressive people in this country be led in a direction that can help us to make that case and take the progressive case out to, the other couple 100 million Americans and try to achieve all of these goals that we have that are so important and so smart and so common sense? I'm optimistic that we can go in that direction, but it's going to require light to be shed on, transparency, light to be shined on the corruption, because I think the biggest problem I see among rank and file Democrats and progressive people, regular voters, not necessarily activists within the progressive community, but just the common voters is, and I ran for office. I met thousands of them. I've been a community organizer and activist for 20 years. Most people that are registered Democrats that affiliate with the Democratic Party are progressive, good people that want the country to go in the same direction we do. It's just that a lot of them have been convinced by the leadership and through various means that the scariest, worst thing they could ever do would be actually vote for a progressive, right? And I think the progressive movement has made up some good ground in recent years toward, look at the squad, look at some other great victories we have. There's some more important elections today. I think that we're getting more people in. So I think, those are the people, the regular people, the progressive people around the country that can be, through a lot of hard work and leadership, led, in the right direction toward the progressive goals. But no, I do not think the current crop of DNC leaders will ever be reformed.
But even the squad, and I just want to discuss this further, because even the squad, they get in there and it's really hard for them to oppose Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is the gatekeeper of who has voted for all of Trump's military budgets, who has given him more money, who has really said that the Green New or whatever, she doesn't even support that. She has mocked them. She has mocked a lot of the progressives, and they are kind of like, with their hands behind their back, they have their hands tied, because if they oppose her too much, then she can go and keep them off certain committees. I understand that strategy, tactical sense of it, but the people on the ground, the people see this and they're like, well, what the hell? Well, we elected you to fight the establishment, not to play nice and call Nancy Mama Bear. So to a lot of people, it just seems like if you stay within the party changes you and forces your hand. We've seen a lot of Congress people go in there with so many great ideas, only to be just stunted by the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders himself. And so how do you tell people to continue to have faith in that. I understand what you're saying about the people. I agree, because the majority of people, like what 80% of people want in the Democratic Party want Medicare for all. Half
Oh,
of
sure,
Americans,
at least 80%. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if they're not obviously, if they're not listening to their constituents, obviously we know, because they take the money, that there's really no changing this leadership. So what is the plan to take over? Is it to just have more progressives until there can be like a sort of coup?
Well, and I know, and I hear exactly what you're saying. For instance, what's literally the first vote, or one of the first votes that they all took, was literally to vote for Nancy Pelosi to make her speaker, right? So, I mean, if you have a question as to who they're following, no better example than that right there, right? And I do like so many of the things that the squad is doing, that Bernie Sanders is doing. And you had mentioned that there's been a lot of people who have come into Congress and leadership over the years, and we had so much hope for them, and they kind of dashed those dreams. But frankly, I can't think of very many, right? I mean, I certainly can't think of politicians that have hit Washington the same way that the squad has to some extent, that came in with the level of boldness in their agenda, as well as the courage to stand against the grain as often as they do. Now, do they always stand against the grain? No, they do not. Absolutely, they do not. Right? And does Bernie have an inside-outside strategy as well? And that's probably the best thing that I would call it with a lot of the squad members. I don't want to group them all together because they're each individual. Yeah. But I will say this. I've been involved in politics for a long time. I was one of the first staffers in the Iowa caucus on, John Kerry's campaign back in 2004. I met my wife when she was working for Howard Dean's campaign in the Iowa caucus. Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. I think I became more and more progressive, and now I look back and I think, oh wow, I can't believe that even happened, right?
Right.
But that said, Bernie is unlike any political leader, at least elected political leader, that I have ever seen in my lifetime. Hands down, far and away different, far and away better, far and away. I mean, the combination of the boldness of his agenda combined with the courage to stand up against even just the party leadership, of course, not even to mention corporate interests, moneyed interests, all that kind of stuff, is unlike anything we've ever seen. Sure. Now, does he do the inside-outside strategy? Yes, he does. And in some ways, he has achieved a tremendous amount by doing that, right? Now, believe me, I struggle every single day with the question of what's the most effective way to get the progressive policy agenda enacted, and struggle every day with, my God, things are happening so slowly, if at all, right? But I will say that if you look at like 2014, before anybody knew who Bernie Sanders was, to today, and the kind of mainstream Democratic Party beliefs, they're so much more progressive than they were even 6 short years ago, really, in a political realm. And that would not happen without them doing that. And one more example I'll throw out there is, first of all, our whole system of nominating a Democratic president is completely 100% rigged, right? Yeah, I've worked the last 4 cycles for the Democrat for a Democrat from the very beginning of the Iowa caucus on. But one thing that never ever gets said, which is the huge elephant in the room, is that the superdelegates can vote for whoever they want and essentially put in whoever they want, right? And it was astounding to me that Bernie Sanders in 2016, even though he lost the election, was able to actually take such a large leap toward reducing the power of the superdelegates. Obviously, superdelegates shouldn't exist at all, but the fact that he got it so that they couldn't vote on the first ballot, to me, was astounding, because I have no faith in the DNC leadership. I never did. I still don't to this day. The fact that he was able to accomplish that, to me, is no short achievement. And this time, a lot of the things that he's getting criticism for among progressives is because he made another deal, essentially, to try to continue that very, very important, very good rule change into the future. And so I'm glad he did that. But I do love the debate and the continued discussion as to what is the best way for us as progressives to move forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did that, but I mean, we didn't even get the chance to go against that because of the corruption. I mean, we studied here, we in the LA elections and the California elections were huge election integrity people. We saw hounds of voter suppression. I traveled to Iowa. I saw the coin tosses. I mean, I have not seen democracy be enacted. Nobody is giving progressives a fair shake at trying to win. And I just feel like we keep playing a rigged game. Now, I want to go on to this specific thing that happened because we have a list of names. You put it out yesterday. The 105 people that went on record. Are you surprised with these results coming from people, or was it pretty much Bernie Sanders supporters supporting it versus the Biden people opposing it? And what about the abstentions? How did that work out?
Well, to me, for the most part, the abstentions or the non-votes, there's a bunch of people essentially that didn't vote, are tantamount to no votes, right? Because it has the same effect. I think, there were a couple surprising names on the list for various votes, but 99% of them were not surprising because it's exactly how it broke down was Bernie Sanders nominees voted for it. Biden nominees voted against it. I will say the DNC never wanted this list to happen. They never wanted an up and down vote. And I later found out after the meeting right away that the only reason they even brought it off the table to give the up and down vote was because after the Bernie nominees were protesting, essentially behind the scenes in this separate, virtual room they had us all in, sustained for 15 minutes. The higher ups of the Bernie campaign actually reached out directly to the Biden campaign and got them to essentially, instruct their committee members to vote to take it off the table, which is exactly how every vote happens. It happened that way in 2016 when I was on the Democratic Platform Committee, was that the Hillary campaign and the DNC instructed their majority of people exactly how to vote on every single one. And that was exactly what was happening this time as well.
Right. So we're obviously powerless, and a lot of the opposition that is happening right now, in my opinion, seems symbolic. For instance, while I value what you guys are doing, the declining of Medicare for All on the platform in the middle of a pandemic, at the very least, just put it on the platform. It doesn't even mean that it's going to happen. Was just completely unacceptable at the very least. And now the 700 Bernie delegates can vote no on the platform, but there are not enough of them. So this is largely symbolic. What can we realistically do with these sort of oppositions? While I'm happy that there are people opposing the party, what does it actually get us if it doesn't push actual change?
That's a good question. I think that I'm enormously supportive of the 700 people. I really do believe if we had the time and the ability that we might be able to convince even a decent percentage of the Biden delegates to vote for it as well. In fact, there's a guy, a great guy who is very progressive, who actually worked on my congressional campaign, was one of my field people that I believe is a Biden delegate. And I'm sure he can't be the only one in the country, right? So I'm sure there's people out there. I haven't reached out to him recently, but I'm sure there's people out there that could be convinced. But ultimately, this is not even, let's say even, oh my gosh, the craziest, most unexpected thing ever happened, and the convention delegates revolted at the convention, and we got Medicare for All put onto the party platform. While that would be tremendous and would be a small victory, and we would get hopefully a good amount of press and some momentum out of that, ultimately, that kind of thing is, we're going to need a lot more than that. And what I really urge people to do, and frankly, the reason that I ran for Congress primarily was, I should say, I think the reason I ran is clear, right? But the thing that gave me the courage to actually get out there and start running was that Bernie Sanders said, the most important thing that progressives can do right now, if you're able and willing, is to run for office. And, I want to try to amplify that progressives, I hope, will get out there, run for office. I ran for United States Congress. It's the first time I've ever run for anything. Was it scary? Yes, it was. But you know what the scariest part was? It was before I announced. It was all these questions in my head of what is it going to be like, or how thing. And so the scariest poll actually before I announced. Once I actually got to start talking about what I was doing something completely unprecedented. I mean, running on a bold progressive agenda in Kansas, right? And I thought it was a very positive experience. We almost won. And I encourage people, don't go out there necessarily and run for United States Congress if you don't have a lot of, political campaign experience. But I mean, school board, city council, right, mayors of small towns, whatever it may be. I think there's, and in politics, you can rise quickly through the ranks, right? So, I think what we need to do is start winning elections. And if you want to run as a Democrat, run as a Democrat. If you want to run as a Green or an independent, then go do that, right? I mean, especially at those local levels, it doesn't really matter. You probably have a better chance of running as an independent, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Shama Sawant and what she's been able to do in Seattle, what they've been able to do with someone like her, city council. The problem is not enough people pay attention to those smaller races, and everything happens, like Bernie said, bottom up. You start acting local and you start changing things locally, and that can lead to a big impact. I 100% agree with you. I want you to talk about how the DNC stacks their committee with corporate lobbyists, because a lot of people don't know how that works. Can you explain how they do this?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I am not extremely well versed in the process or the inside of the DNC, right? But I can tell you kind of what I've learned through this process. What I do know is that the DNC, which is comprised of kind of hundreds of these members that are chosen in various ways, is and the power structure of those, especially like the subcommittees and that kind of thing, are completely stocked with corporate lobbyists, corporate board members, corporate advocates. Some of them are corporate advocates that aren't technically a registered lobbyist, but everyone knows where they stand, that kind of thing. And a lot of these members are just regular, good, rank and file Democrats that just got elected at their local state convention, right? And even in Missouri, the neighboring state to mine, there were 4 Bernie people that were actually elected to the DNC 4 years ago. So you could kind of have this big group of different types of personalities and interests and stuff. But a large percentage of them are corporate lobbyists because it's in their benefit, their financial benefit to go through this process and get that. But then where the real, even worse probably corruption happens is there's 75 what's called at-large DNC committee members, which the DNC chairman gets to put in on his own. And those overwhelmingly go to lobbyists and corporate interests and cronies. And this is my understanding, if any of this is wrong, it's just because I'm not usually on the inside of these rooms either. But then my understanding is the chair then has the ability to take this, minority of at-large delegates and make them a majority of each of the subcommittees, essentially having a complete, control over most of the big decisions that are made by the DNC. Right.
So they can at the last minute come in and like what happened with, I think, Tom Perez, where he called 70 at-large delegates, all of them lobbyists, overpowering what the majority of the other delegates wanted. I mean, we see it happen. I see it happen here at the California Democratic Party level when it came to the chair elections. The same exact thing happened. Different weighted votes, etc. Do we need more of us in there, or do we even have time? Wouldn't it just be easier to just like wipe the slate and start with a new party, or empower a party that's already there, or perhaps I'm not saying people shouldn't work inside. I'm saying we also need people to start building outside, because if we put all our eggs on one basket, only on the Democratic Party, that could easily get overtaken or co-opted, as we've seen time and time again. And also, the DNC admitted that they're a private entity. I mean, they admitted that they could go in a room, smoke cigars and make up whatever rules they want. So again, Brent, I'm sorry to keep asking you, but like, how do we even fathom the concept of working with criminals? I mean, it's like they're the mafia. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of mob movies lately, and it just reminds me of the DNC.
Yeah. I mean, almost all the work needs to be done on the outside of the DNC, and frankly, we this week, because it's the convention week, and because I was able to go on there and kind of make light of or trying to light on this type of corruption, and because of some other great leaders that have been able to do similar things on this committee and other committees, there's a focus on the DNC specifically. But what is the DNC? The DNC is frankly not even the most powerful party organization in the country. right? The DSCC, the DCCC,
Yep.
the Congress people on the Hill, and ultimately any Democratic presidential administrations have such a tremendous more amount of power than the DNC does. I think it's good to focus on the DNC this week. It makes sense this week, but ultimately, more people. I hope that what people will get out of this entire process is realizing that if just the party apparatus itself is this corrupt, imagine the levels of the unchecked corruption that are happening in Congress, where the actual decisions are being made and where the actual money is being, doled out to these giant corporations. I mean, to me, this is just a kind of a microcosm and a symbolic example of the way, way worse corruption that's happening in a system where lobbyists and corporations are writing the very laws and rigging the entire system against us. I'm an attorney. I'm a workers' rights attorney. I also do a lot of wrongful death and catastrophic injury cases. So I'm going up against giant corporations and insurance companies every single day that are rigging the laws against you. They're rigging insurance policies. Then even under those laws and under those insurance policies, if you actually have a legitimate claim to make, they're rigging the legal process against you, right? Every single step of the way, if you're an average person, you have no chance whatsoever. It's hard, but most of the work has to be done on the outside of the DNC. And I really do believe that a large portion of that has to be actually electing progressives and really starting at the ground level and working our way up to the extent that we can. But there's no easy fix that I can see.
Right. I mean, it's a conundrum, and you're seeing what's happening, I'm sure, outside the protest in mass against police brutality and for Black lives. But now we're sort of seeing a shift into the economics. We're seeing a lot of people protest and demand cancel rent, demand, an extension of the eviction moratoriums here in LA. It's going to be up soon, and millions of people, probably, I think it's about over 30 million people, are going to be kicked out of their homes. They're also not going to receive the $600 while Congress took a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, and $600 per week. A lot of people say $600 because we kind of are aware of it. But for people that aren't aware, it's $600 per week, which is a tremendous amount of money to yank away from the most destitute, most vulnerable people in our society.
Especially in large cities. It's a tremendous amount of money for the people who need it, but it's not enough money for the people who are unemployed, who were maybe making more money. And all majorly Republicans, but some Democrats too, are focused on making sure that you don't get an extra couple dollars in there if you're staying at home. So we're fighting a lot of terrible things. So we're seeing people pay attention to that. And isn't it necessary now, right? Because what I'm seeing right now is that our power is not really right now. We have no power in the electorate, and we have a lot of power that we can seize outside of it. What I mean by outside is I don't mean just the Green Party. I'm talking about mass protest movements. We're seeing people stand up, people who were never political before, small businesses who have been run out by corporate interests and corporations who have gotten the money far easily than they did. We're seeing these people protest in Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle. And so isn't it time to seize that moment and that momentum and grab it and say, you know what, we're going to have a list of demands. We're going to demand this and start protesting at Congress people's houses, because these are people's lives at stake. I mean, we're talking about denying people health care. You're killing them. You're potentially killing people. You're potentially killing people by not giving them the $600 extension per week. And so isn't it time we also take advantage of what these people are rising up and educate them and say, you know what, this police brutality is directly connected to the economics of rent cancellation. Who are the majority of people who suffer when we kick people out of their homes? It's people of color, Black people, Latino people who are immigrants.
And why do they do this, right? Why are the laws written this way in what is, supposed to be a democracy in our country? And it's because I think these giant corporations, these billionaires, they are constantly stealing from us, right? Keeping so many people just kind of viable enough in their life so they can keep feeding the system, feeding the beast, right? And then of the money they steal from us, they take a little tiny bit of it and they pay off the cheap politicians. right, with their legalized bribes, the bribes that are literally, think about that, legalized bribes. Like the Congress people have made it legal to give them the bribes. We have a tremendous uphill battle. I am fully supportive of all the people that are taking to the streets, whether it's for Black Lives, whether it's Fight for 15 or other, rent issues. I think that's an extremely important piece of the puzzle. And I think the next part of it is that the activists out there, especially the types of people that watch your show and listen to it, to take that energy and the best that you possibly can figure out how can we organize it, right?
It's right.
It's not going to be some super, you said a list of demands, and I know you're just kind of speaking like hypothetically, but it's not going to be some like laser-like focus on any one issue or anything. But essentially, it's the angst that the people, the masses, probably easily a majority of the people in our country are feeling. And we at the ground level not only have to run for office, that's one way to sort of organize things, right? But if you're not doing that, if your calling is more as an organizer, like try to just figure out novel ways that you can organize this energy, this angst, this movement, and get some achievable things done. And let's hope that we can continue to get more momentum in the progressive movement.
Right. Everybody has a role to play. I mean, some people are working on the inside, like such as yourself. Some people are done the party, trying to build the Green Party, trying to build a movement for the People's Party. Some people are just out there protesting. I mean, there are all these things happening. What I would like to see is a sort of organization on both the outside and with some help from the inside. I genuinely don't think we're going to be able to hijack this party just because we've tried for so long. And although you're right, we haven't tried as hard as we have now. Donald Trump, if anything good came out of him, was the ability to show the ugliness in America and to really have people protest against that. He literally has inspired millions of people to go out there and protest against him. And I think that woke up a lot of people. I think, myself, I voted for Obama as well. And, I became extremely radicalized when I saw the largest transfer of wealth to the 1% from the poor people. And now we've done it again. I mean, my generation has seen nothing but the decline of late stage capitalism. And it's really hard. And now we're seeing Gen Z come next, and they're like, no, you know what? Enough. I mean, I have my sister, she's 17. They realize that no politician has the answer. We go out to the protests and we talk to a lot of Black youth, and they have said, you know what, we don't like Joe Biden. We hate Trump, but we hate Biden too. He hasn't done anything for us. So these younger generations are realizing this, and I don't think they're going to put up with this much longer. So I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing. It'll probably get worse before it gets better. But what is the one thing you can tell people, right? To convince them to fight, to give the Democratic Party a chance in the sense of still trying to work with it, because a lot of people are saying, why work within a party who has denied us every single thing we have asked for? Same thing goes for Joe Biden. Why vote for Joe Biden if he has literally not earned our vote, right? That's the biggest thing here. And I know it's a catch-22, because it's like, oh, we can't change anything if we're not in there. But if we go out, like if we are in there, then we risk the chance of getting changed ourselves. And it's like a catch-22. It's a paradox. What can you tell people to really argue to be in this party any longer?
Well, one thing that the establishment clearly understands is that progressives have the power to, in their mind, ruin elections for the Democratic Party, right? We've heard it time and time and time again. We heard it. We heard last time that progressives were the reason that Hillary lost. Back to the Ralph Nader days. I don't know if you remember that or not, but there's a lot of people that said that Ralph Nader, caused Al Gore to lose that election, right? So what I don't understand is, why is there not a logical progression in the minds of the establishment that, okay, well, if the progressive movement has this enormous power, right, to single-handedly sway the presidential election, then why on earth would they not then in the next election go out and try to earn the support and the vote never do like this time? Like I thought after 4 years ago they would have realized, oh my goodness, in their mind, because of these progressives, that this clown of the earth, Donald Trump, the one of the dumbest people in America is the president of the United States, right? And if they think it's because of the progressives, why would they not go out the next 4 years and be like, I don't know how we're going to win, but I'll tell you one thing, we're absolutely going to make sure we get the progressives on board because they're the one, because this is what ruined it for us last time. You don't see that though. In fact, you see the opposite. You see almost even more the establishment people wanting to disassociate sometimes with progressive activists.
Absolutely.
One great example is when I was running for Congress early on, I was so immensely proud to receive the endorsement of Cornel West early in the campaign, which I was glad to receive it because that was the one thing my wife told me, that she would only let me run for Congress if I could get his endorsement. So I was glad to be able to prove that was true. But the second thing is, a member, just a local, regular, good person member of the establishment came up to me after that and said, I was really upset and disappointed because I saw online that Cornel West endorsed you for Congress. And Cornel West, this person said, endorsed the Green Party and voted for Jill Stein last election. And my response to this person was, don't you want the people who voted for Jill Stein to vote for me for Congress? And, against the Republicans? And the voter said, wow, actually, yes, you're absolutely right about that. Yes. And the person wasn't upset about it anymore, right? So I think that needs to be our answer a lot of times. When people are getting upset with it, we say, don't you want all those people that apparently ruined the election for Democrats last time to vote for the Democratic nominee this time? And if the answer is yes, then I think, the Joe Biden and the establishment members of the party need to do something to try to make that happen. Otherwise, they're not just being corrupt, they're being stupid.
Yeah, I honestly don't even, it just seems like they don't want to win. I mean, at this point, it seems like both parties don't want to win. I mean, they're both being a joke. And just to wrap it up, I just want to say, like, to me, Joe Biden hasn't earned my vote. I'm obviously in California, so a lot of people could argue, well, your vote, whatever, it's going to be Democrat anyway. But for me, it's like at this point, we don't have power in the electorate. We have, all I have is my vote and my ability to protest outside and to act locally as much as I can. So me giving in my vote to Joe Biden is giving all of my power when he hasn't gotten anything. It's like a relationship of abuse. If I'm with an abusive relationship and I keep taking that abuse and I don't stand up for myself, they're going to continue doing it because I'm not standing up for myself. I'm also not demanding any better. So I think progressives as a whole have to unite and demand better. And if they don't do what we say, we can at least say, you know what, we're not going to support you. People can choose whatever. I don't vote shame. People can vote for whoever they feel like they need to vote for. But at the same time, I think progressives are getting sick and tired of being vote shamed for really not wanting to be another, a support for the oligarchy. I mean, this is what we're up against here. We're up against complete evil people, a lot of people in the leadership who are awful. I agree with you. I don't think the majority of Democrats who are loyal to the party are bad people. I just think that they're manipulated by the leadership, and I just don't know if it's going to be possible to change that sort of thinking without going away with the party together. But I still value what you guys are trying to do. I think it's important that people like you learn the rules, understand how to defeat the enemy, and maybe pass that along to people working outside. I think we need to combine efforts and unify and work against it, because right now, Brett, I just do not see that we have the time to keep incrementally taking over. But I appreciate what you do, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And, I'll just leave you with this, I think, and maybe this is a discussion for the next time, hopefully we get a chance to talk, we haven't even talked about the 100 million people of voting age who just don't vote. Right? Who do you think they would vote for? So there's a whole nother reason to support these progressive issues. But thank you so much. Great discussion. Thanks for having me on. And I really appreciate it. And I hope that you will keep doing what you're doing, and all of your viewers as well.
Thank you so much, Brent. Brent Welder, DNC, Bernie representative.
Oh, I'll throw in at Brent Welder is where where I'm putting out lots of good information, and Twitter. This list of on Twitter. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Follow him on Twitter at Brent Welder. Thank you guys for watching. Convo out. Bye.
Bye.